Schwaben Park is a small family amusement park in Germany. This well-landscaped park has a relaxing feel, and they've added two very unique coasters in recent years in Wilde Hilde and Hummel Brummel. But do these two rides make Schwaben Park worth visiting along with everything else the park has? Find out in this review. The park originally opened in 1972 as Safari Park. In its early years, the park was exclusively a small zoo. It wasn't until 1978 that they started adding mechanical rides, and the park expanded their ride offerings throughout the 1980s. Then in 1995, the park was renamed to Schwaben Park, and they've kept that name to this day. Today, the park is primarily an amusement park, but they've still retained some animal exhibits. Schwaben Park has a very relaxing atmosphere. This family-owned park feels quaint. There's a ton of greenery. You have plenty of trees for shade, and the park is very well landscaped. I'd argue that's the park's biggest strength. Then the rides look nice too. Well, most of them, but I'll get to that later. The rides are colorful, and the newer ones have some light theming. This was a very pleasant park just to walk around. Just know it's on a hill. The main entrance is located atop the hill, and the back section's at the very bottom. As of 2021, Schwaben Park costs €23 for adults, which was a very fair price given this park's ride lineup. The park has 4 different roller coasters. The most notable is Wilde Hilde. This is the prototype RES rollerball coaster. This is a variation on the 4th Dimension coaster, and it feels like a wild mouse coaster turned on its side. Now the ride does look wilder than it actually is. The ride is braked extensively. You travel at a snail's pace down every Raven turn, so you're never gonna invert. You just rock back and forth. The most impressive thing about this coaster is its legendary soundtrack. The coaster is themed to chickens, and it features a catchy and clucky techno beat. If you've never heard this song, stop what you're doing immediately and go listen to it. I go into more detail in a separate review, but the braking makes sense given the park's audience. It just makes the ride dull for coaster enthusiasts and thrill seekers. The other weird coaster here is Hummel Brummel, a bee-themed powered coaster from Wiegand. This is one of the company's WeFlyer coasters, and pairs of 2 ride in individual vehicles. It basically feels like a suspended version of the company's Bob Carts. There is a lever that I believe was supposed to control your speed, but the vehicles seem to move at the same rate whether you use the lever or not. As a coaster, Hummel Brummel was boring. There was zero force. However, it is a decent observation ride because it travels high above the pathways. Just know it's a very ugly ride though. This coaster is one of the most repulsive paint schemes I have ever seen. Force 1 is the park's best coaster. This is a Zier ESC or elevated seating coaster. Force 1 has super open trains and a very pleasant layout. The coaster has some surprisingly forceful turns and helixes, plus a few small airtime pops peppered in. I go into more detail in a separate review, but this was easily the highlight of my visit. The final coaster is Raupen Express, a Zier kiddie coaster. This one was well landscaped, featured 4 laps, and if you ride up front, the bunny hill will give you a weak pop of airtime. This was a decently enjoyable kiddie coaster. The park has a handful of flat rides. Most are geared towards kids, but you do have a few family spinning rides. And then the park's largest flat ride was the Santa Lore swinging ship. You also have a very weird dark ride in Azura. This attraction looks like a classic old mill or tunnel of love, but the ride experience is nothing like that. It's really weird. You move slowly through a single room and are treated to a dancing water show. I personally found this dark ride on the duller side, but it was certainly unique. For those hot days, you have a few water rides. The best 2 are Das Sägewerk, which is an OK log flume with a basic off-the-shelf layout, and then Wellenreiter is an OK racing water slide with some decent sized drops. You also have a series of scenic tracked rides. Bob Car is the most notable. This is basically a powered mountain coaster. This one has decent speed, but there are no notable drops or forces. You then have multiple car rides, boat rides, and monorails to choose from to appreciate this park's natural beauty. Scattered around the park are some active attractions geared towards kids. These range from slides to climbing structures. Lastly, you have the animal exhibits. There weren't too many, especially considering this park's heritage, but the monkeys were hysterical. One of the monkeys picked up a long reed and repeatedly bashed the others. I couldn't believe it. I visited on a summer weekday, and lines were moderate. Schwalben Park's rides don't have the highest capacities, which is fine given their crowd levels. The longest lines I saw were a half hour for Wilde Hilde, Hummel Brummel, and the Log Flume. Then a few other rides like the Bob Cart, Dark Ride, and Kiddie Coaster had lines hovering around 20 minutes. Most other rides are no more than 5 to 10 minutes. If you arrive at opening, I'd advise hitting Hummel Brummel and Wilde Hilde first because they're right next to the main entrance. You should then be able to get to the other rides down the hill before majority of the crowds do. The park opens at 10 a.m. daily, and it's usually open until 5 or 6 p.m. most days. Coaster enthusiasts likely only need a maximum of 2 hours to ride the coasters and make a lap of the park. Younger guests could easily spend a half to a full day here. The amount of rides and attractions suitable for young guests is incredible. Most rides don't have height restrictions, and then there are only 3 rides with a 47 to 48 inch height requirement, and 2 of the coasters, and the Log Flume. This makes the park great for young kids. If you're a coaster enthusiast on a European road trip, I would prioritize Germany's other parks. But after you've hit the major ones, it may be worth spending a few hours here for that wonderful atmosphere and the unique coasters. So those are my thoughts on Schwalben Park, the small family park in Germany. What are your thoughts on this park? Do you hope to visit someday? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canobie Coaster. Thanks for watching.